Hey everyone, and welcome to Boston Autoblog. In 2021, it is difficult to find a great all-around daily driver that is a sedan. Because when you speak that S word, you know you're going to be giving up practicality and second-row legroom. But if you want to have great driving dynamics and a fun and engaging driving experience, you're going to have to sacrifice a bit to have that fun. And if you're the type of buyer that does not want to own a BMW M340i, Audi S4, or Mercedes-Benz C43, what are the other options out there? What are your alternatives? Because those three cars are put on a pedestal and they do tend to balance both performance and luxury quite well. So outside of Germany, you have the Alfa Romeo Giulia, possibly. You have the Genesis G70, Kia Stinger GT, Infiniti Q50S Red Sport, and the Volvo S60. But you're going to find that some of those cars are too luxurious and not sporty enough, or have great sports car and handling dynamics, but they're not really well refined. And that's why I'm here to take a look at the Acura TLX Type S. I have been waiting all year to feature this car. And in fact, it was last year at this time that I featured the TLX A-Spec, and I did fall in love with that car. I felt as though that it provided a good amount of performance and also luxury, where I think at its price point provides a lot of value. And today I'm going to find out if the Type S is everything it's cracked up to be. Throughout this video, you're going to hear me talk about size and dimensions, because in this particular segment, you have the 3 Series, the A4, the Mercedes-Benz C-Class, Alfa Romeo Giulia, and Genesis G70, which are compact luxury sports sedans. Whereas the TLX is the same size or very close to a 5 Series. And if you're looking for performance, size isn't necessarily a good thing, and neither is the weight. And on paper, the TLX is heavier and longer than a M340i. But I have heard some great things about this car when it comes to its handling, when it comes to its performance, and also the stiffer suspension. And that's why I am here, because I personally believe this car will surprise people who are looking to buy a car at around $60,000. So in this video, we're going to take a good long look at the 2022 Acura TLX Type S, see how it compares to other vehicles in this segment, and also see why, if you're looking at buying a sports sedan that's not from Germany, then maybe going with the Acura TLX Type S might be a great decision. Now, before I get in this video, I want to give a huge shout and thank you to Prime Acura of Westwood in Westwood, Massachusetts, for allowing me to do this review. Their link will be in the description below, so you can check out their extensive Acura inventory. Also, before we get started, make sure to click the subscribe button and hit the notification bell so you're notified every time a new video goes live on the channel. And so, without wasting any further time, let's get right in this review. It wouldn't be a stretch to say that Japanese luxury brands have been forgotten about when it comes to performance and being enthusiast brands, as the focus shifted to full-on luxury and crossovers back in the late 2000s. But here we are in 2021 with Acura bringing back some iconic nameplates, while at the same time revitalizing their lineup to appeal to a whole new generation of consumer. The Acura TLX Type S is one of the latest additions to the growing sports sedan market, despite all conventional wisdom suggesting that Americans have moved on to SUVs. A few years ago, there likely would have been some skepticism surrounding Acura if they had decided to inject performance into their vehicles. But ever since the NSX's arrival, this manufacturer has experienced a renaissance of sorts, and the TLX Type S continues on this evolution of the lineup that's quickly becoming more intriguing with each passing year. Starting off with pricing, the TLX Type S comes in with a base price of $52,300, which falls right in line with rivals such as the Audi S4, BMW M340i, Genesis G70, and Mercedes-Benz C43 AMG. While the Type S may in fact have a price range of a compact sports sedan, the dimensions are almost identical to a Cadillac CT5, which, to put that into perspective, is about 9 inches longer and 3 inches wider than a BMW 3 Series. Building off of an already good-looking sedan, Acura added aggressive aesthetic features for a sinister and capable appearance, but most of the changes were mechanical to help stiffen up the suspension and provide some rigidity, with the TLX being performance-driven rather than having a laid-back and luxurious persona that we experienced with the A-Spec last year. Getting into the exterior design, This model has been wrapped and X-Pelled to protect the Apex Blue paint color, and to be quite honest, it looks sleeker because of it. Body lines are sharper, specifically for the hood, and standard are gloss black accents found throughout for a lower profile appearance, while also adding a nice color contrast. Not as noticeable with non-Type S models is the resemblance to the NSX, especially with the LED headlight design. And in fact, if you were to opt for the wheel and tire package, you'd receive 20-inch wheels that are found on Acura's flagship sports car. The front grille and intakes found in the lower portion of the front bumper receive a redesign that once again gives the sedan sporty qualities. But also, unlike on the A-Spec, the fog lights have been removed, which enhances the size of these grills. Moving over to the side profile, our model is sitting on 20-inch shark gray multi-spoke wheels, which do come standard. And while we often discuss how tire size can play a role in ride quality, the TLX Type S can handle the imperfections in the road very well. However, in Sport Plus mode, you're going to feel the bumps thanks to the suspension being tuned for aggressive driving. You'll have gloss black folding side mirrors with turn signal indicators to go along with blind spot detection for added safety. Then coming around to the back, how could you not be drawn in by the large quad exhaust outlets that visually dominate the rear fascia? And with the $1,300 carbon fiber rear diffuser, there's no mistaking the Type S when parked side by side with an A-Spec. As we discussed the last time we featured the TLX, not only does this sports sedan look menacing from this angle, but cosmetically speaking, the Type S might be one of the better looking cars in this market, as the LED taillights are streamlined and the gloss black accents don't cheapen the appearance. A rear spoiler will help differentiate the sedan from the other trims in the lineup, and overall, what Acura has done to this car is give it the right amount of styling and sharp angles without complicating the design. Under the hood, the Type S is powered by a 3-liter turbocharged V6 engine that puts out 355 horsepower and 354 pound-feet of torque, and is paired with a 10-speed automatic transmission, which is going to offer an exhilarating driving experience compared to the 272 horsepower and 280 pound-feet of torque you receive with the 2-liter inline 4-cylinder for a standard TLX. With performance being the name of the game, it should be noted that straight-line speed is going to be slightly behind its German rivals, as body weight and size is going to play a significant role in accelerations. However, Acura's persistence in reworking the super handling all-wheel drive system pay dividends, as steering input and cornering ability is going to surprise many who own similar sized sedans. For fuel efficiency, you're looking at right around 19 miles per gallon in the city, and 25 miles per gallon on the highway. Stepping inside, you're given power adjustable, heated and ventilated perforated Milano leather seats with ultra suede inserts for both the driver and passenger, with the driver's side being 2-position memory for added convenience. Enhancing the driving environment is the carbon fiber trim found on the door panels and dashboard, but more importantly, this also adds a sense of quality as well. Getting back to the front seats, they do provide a good amount of bolstering to keep you in place on spirited drives, but they're comfortable too, which will go hand in hand with the driving characteristics of the Type S when you change from Sport Plus mode to a less aggressive setting when you're commuting to work. In front of you, between the analog gauges, a digital display will showcase relevant information. And while it may appear to be aged compared to what is found in an Audi S4 for example, you're going to find that you're less distracted behind the wheel, allowing you to focus on the road ahead. Then moving over to the infotainment system, as we've experienced a few times in the past, a trackpad and quick access buttons are your only way to scroll through different menus, as Acura doesn't offer a touchscreen. As always, you will have Apple CarPlay and Android Auto compatibility, to go along with onboard navigation and the 17-speaker ELS Studio 3D Premium audio system to amplify the sound of your favorite music. It should be noted that if this is your first time driving a modern Acura, it will take some time to get used to the trackpad and layout of the head unit before becoming second nature to use on a daily basis. Of course, you will have a rear backup camera with trajectory, to go along with parking sensors. As you glance below the user interface, you're probably going to notice just how intuitive the dashboard layout is, as ergonomically it has a fighter jet-like design, but also everything is within arm's reach, so that when you want to access the dual-zone climate control or 3-level heated and ventilated seats, you know exactly where everything is. It's also here where your drive mode selector can be found, which normally will be placed on the center console for most competitors. However, once again, its placement is going to allow you to focus on driving rather than looking down. For the center console itself, you'll have a wireless phone charging pad, and for the storage compartment, there's plenty of room for small items. And rounding out the front seating area, above will be a power moonroof to let in some natural light to the interior. Now for passengers in the back, we're going to start off on the passenger side, and the seat is adjusted further back. It's not on a recline, and I still have a few inches of legroom to work with here, but I'm going to be completely honest that if this seat was adjusted any further back, I'd probably feel a bit cramped, even at my height around 5'5". So as everyone else says that the TLX is tight and cramped, I'm going to say the exact same thing, because I think if you're on the height of 5'9" or above, you are going to feel pretty claustrophobic for sure. Now, what I do want to point out, though, is that these seats do provide a good amount of bolstering. They are nice and firm, and if your driver is going to be on back roads and driving aggressively, I think you're going to be able to hold on tight for sure back here. So certainly has that sports car quality and feel, but if you are looking for a car that's spacious and practical, the TLX is not that. But I'm willing to guess that if you are buying a Type S, you're purchasing it for its performance and not its family-friendly qualities. Now, for the center seat, the center hump is very aggressive, and there's really no good placements for my feet. Now, even though the Type S is not what I consider to be a grand tour, it's going to have that feel, where the second row seats are going to be bolstered nicely. They're going to feel like the seats up front, and it has that sports car feel even for passengers, but you're just not going to be able to fit a third person back here of any size. Now, for the driver's side, this seat is adjusted to someone of my height, around 5'5", and now I have a good amount of legroom to work with here, but still certainly nowhere close to being on par with the 5 Series. So, like I said before, I think that if you are buying a Type S, you're purchasing it because it's a fun daily driver and not necessarily because it's going to give you practicality or even a car that's going to be very spacious for the interior. Also back here you will have 2 rear air vents. There's no USB inputs at all. And rounding out the rear seating area, you do get a center armrest with 2 cup holders. Now coming around to the back, as you can tell, there is no latch to open the trunk, but there is a button found in the right tail light, and by pressing it, it pops right open. And inside you're going to have right around 13.5 cubic feet of room to work with, which is better than the Genesis G70 that we recently featured earlier this summer. Now back here in eyeing this, I do think you'll be able to fit 2 or 3 bags of luggage if you are going on a road trip with a significant other. Also, what's great to see is that it is pretty wide, so I was able to fit my tripods with ease. Now, I was able to fit all my camera gear with no problem, so I do think it's practical for daily use if you are going to the grocery store and whatnot. But like I said before, you're not buying this vehicle for its practicality. You're not buying it for its interior space. You're buying it because it's fun to drive. And just having this rear cargo area be spacious enough where it does outclass other sports sedans in this price range, that I think is a plus. Now, compared to, say, a BMW 5 Series, that's where it will fall a bit short, because if my memory serves me correct, the 5 Series had around 17.5 cubic feet of room, which isn't necessarily that big of a difference, but if you are focused on that, then you're going to want to go with probably a hatchback or one of those sportback cars that are out there now. But I do think, though, that this is practical enough for daily use, and it supplements the great driving experience that we're going to experience right now. Now, it's been almost a year since I drove the Acura TLX A-Spec, and I gotta be honest, I really enjoyed that car. It surprised me in many ways just because when it comes to the driving dynamics for non-German vehicles or European vehicles, you're not really expecting a lot of refinement. You're not really expecting a lot of feedback when it comes to steering. So I'm really interested in seeing if this car is a lot better in terms of its driving dynamics, in terms of performance, but also if it really is an enthusiast car. Now we are, of course, starting off in Sport Plus mode because why not? You want to know how this car is going to perform, especially in its most aggressive setting, but also as an enthusiast, I am more interested in finding out if this car can compete with the Audi S4 or even a Genesis G70. I actually think this car could go up against a lot of non-German competitors like Genesis, like Alfa Romeo, and also, of course, the Infiniti Q50S Red Sport. Now, when it comes to road noise, this car is actually pretty quiet, relatively speaking, but you do get the sound of the V6 into the cabin, so it gives you that sports car-like quality. So let's get into the steering aspect here, since we're going to go around this rotary. A lot of confidence here. And what's really interesting about the TLX is that it's around the same size as a BMW 5 Series and Cadillac CT5, and you really wouldn't know it. You have a lot of shoulder room to work with in this car, so it gives you a nice spacious feel. It doesn't feel as compact as, say, a 3 Series or an A4, but when it comes to driving dynamics, it doesn't feel like a 5 Series or a Cadillac CT5. It feels much smaller. Despite the fact that this car does weigh a lot more than its closest rivals, this car feels very well balanced. Now, when it comes to front vision, you do have a good amount of it. You will have some raised lines on the hood, which gives you a sports car-like feel when you're behind the wheel. A-pillars are somewhat aggressive, but you do have nicely placed side mirrors so you can see what's in your blind spots. And of course, your blind spot detection is on the inside of the car, so you can easily see when that lights up. Then when it comes to the rear, you do have a good amount of vision, so you can see everything around you. But what I like too, though, is that with the interior is that you have a nice wide center console, so it feels like a cockpit in here. It feels like a fighter jet, especially with the dashboard layout. And I gotta be honest, when you're just driving, when you're focused on the driving dynamics and the handling and focusing on what's ahead of you, this is a really great place to be. Now, getting into the suspension of this car, because all I've been hearing is that it is a bit rough, especially on bumpier roads, but this isn't as stiff as I was expecting because it still has that luxury quality to it. You're not really going to get thrown around as much, even with the imperfections in the road. Of course, you do feel them, but it's not like you're losing that comfort aspect that you would find in, say, a Genesis G70 or Audi S4. But you do feel very connected to the road, and that's one thing as an enthusiast I am definitely looking for. Okay, right there I did feel the stiffness of the suspension, but I like having that stiffness, that firmness. And in fact, with the TLX Type S, they made this car 40% stiffer than the A-Spec that I featured last year. And it just feels so much more refined, so much more connected, and I feel very connected to this car as I'm driving. This car is fantastic to drive. It just takes these corners with ease. Very little body roll too, and that's what's standing out to me over the Genesis G70. The G70 could not take corners like that. This just feels so planted, it feels so refined. There's no rattling or creaks with this car. It feels really high quality. And like I said with the A-Spec that I reviewed last year, I thought it was a solid sedan. And it's really too bad that Americans are so infatuated with crossovers, because if we were back in the 90s or early 2000s when sedans were still selling at a higher volume, this car right here would have to be at the top of the list for a lot of buyers not looking to spend a heck of a lot of money for a sports sedan. Also one that does kind of fall below the radar a bit, where you can really have some fun without drawing too much attention to yourself. Because the exhaust isn't necessarily that loud, And even though it does resonate in the interior, it's not super aggressive like the G70. With the G70, once you put that in sport mode, it was really loud in the cabin. But unfortunately, though, I don't think the driving dynamics really matched up with that sound for the G70, whereas with the TLX, I think it does a fantastic job. You just throw it into the corners, and it responds so well. I think, honestly, if there's one aspect where Acura has done an amazing job, it is the steering. The car is just really balanced nicely. And of course, even though when it comes to the straight line acceleration, it is going to fall behind the S4 and the BMW M340i, but there's a few things to take in consideration here is that with the S4, it is underrated. The factory does not give it the numbers it should, because when you put on a dyno, the S4 is right around 400 horsepower and 400 pound-feet of torque, even though when you look at the numbers, it's nowhere close to that on paper, but it's certainly a fast car. And then even BMW does the exact same thing. Whereas with the TLX, I can only assume that the 4.9 seconds 0 to 60 time is correct and accurate, but this car might be just a little bit quicker. All right, so since we are on a deserted back road, there's only tree lines on either side of the road, there's no one around. Let's do a quick acceleration here, see what this car is made of, and let's really get an idea of this transmission, because it is a 10-speed, and does it give you enough feedback and enough of that enjoyment if you are a car enthusiast? So let's get started. Wow, that's pretty impressive. The gear shifts are so quick and smooth. And really, for a transmission that's not a dual clutch or really a ZF8 speed, that's pretty nice. And this is why with this transmission, especially as we were getting on it, that you could notice that if you were to put that in manual mode, you probably wouldn't have as much enjoyment rolling through the gears. The gear shifts are so quick, especially going from first to third, you really can't rev it out like most sports cars, but that's not a bad thing with this sedan. And also, it is a Type S, where I think if it was a Type R, you're going to want to have that performance. You're going to want to have that higher revving. It didn't even hit 6,000 RPM, but not bad. So let's put this car in comfort mode. Let's see how this car relaxes. And the suspension softens up, the car quiets down a bit, and also steering input lightens up significantly. And now you can drive this car on a daily basis on horrible New England roads and not get thrown around, not get abused as you are driving to work. And it balances the luxury and sports car aspect very well. The only thing, though, is that knowing that this car is capable of performing really well, I don't like having it in comfort and normal mode. I'd rather put it in sport and sport plus, just because I want to have those aggressive gear shifts, and that's just my style of driving. But if you are looking for a luxury sedan that also has a good amount of performance as well, and it also comes back to pricing, because when you're looking at spending around $57,000, this may undercut some of its closest competitors. But also, I just think that if you're looking for an all-around great sedan, I think this is one of them. What Acura has done is phenomenal. And also, we would always look at Acura as being a second-tier brand when it comes to being luxurious, even when it comes to being sports car-oriented. But today, in 2021, Acura has changed up their lineup so much, where now they're becoming an enthusiast brand, where if you're ready to upgrade from a Honda and you're looking for something that actually has a good amount of performance, stiffer suspension, and I think a great transmission as well, this is certainly an upgrade. This is a significant upgrade. But also, more importantly, as I said with the last review, the last time I actually featured this car, is that it's not built on a Honda Accord platform. And thankfully that Acura is moving away from that. Even the MDX is not built on a Honda platform, although Hondas will be sharing that platform when the new Pilot and Passport arrive with their new generation. It will be built on some iteration of the MDX's platform and underpinnings. But it's great to see that Acura is going in their own direction, that they're really trying to focus on being a fun enthusiast brand and giving you a unique experience, more importantly. But after this test drive, I really do believe that Acura is at least in the conversation with their closest rivals, if not being on par with them. Now, of course, the TLX is going to be a lot longer and wider than some of its closest rivals, like the BMW 3 Series and Audi S4. But taking consideration that because it's wider, it shouldn't drive like this. It shouldn't feel this light when you are throwing it around in the corners. And even when it comes to performance, it doesn't feel heavy at all. So what I think Acura is doing here is that they've moved in a direction of performance. Ever since the NSX came out, they have been focused on giving drivers a really engaging lineup, in my opinion. I think what the MDX is offering is really fun, especially at its price point, and it's a completely different direction than what Lexus is doing right now. Lexus is all about luxury, where I think Acura is really going for that rigidness and the stiffness of the suspensions, and it's exactly what we have here with the TLX. And when you even drove the regular TLX, the A-Spec, it drove very sporty. It was very aggressive. The steering to me was really nice, especially in sport mode. But with a Type S, it takes it to another degree, into a whole other level. And I'm really impressed here. I think compared to other non-German vehicles I've driven recently, especially the Genesis G70, I think this feels better from a performance standpoint. When it comes to luxury, when it comes to the softness of the suspension, maybe not so much, although I don't think Genesis is trying to be a performance brand at all, especially when you look at the Napa leather materials. I think they're really trying to give you a luxury experience more than anything. But when it comes to other, even Korean brands, I think that this just, to me, feels a lot more refined in terms of the driving dynamics, and that's just how I'm going to leave it with this test drive. I'm just really impressed with what Acura has done here. So in closing, what are my final thoughts for the Acura TLX Type S? Is it a car worth checking out and test driving for yourself? And when it comes to performance, I actually think this car does quite well. Now, straight line acceleration is not going to be on par with an Audi S4 or BMW M340i, but then it comes back down to size, because this is the same size as the BMW 5 Series, and it really is not expected to have an acceleration that's going to match lighter vehicles. But when it comes to handling, though, to me, I think that is the best aspect for this car. You should not be able to throw this around like you can. It shouldn't be as direct, as refined, and as fine-tuned that we see with smaller sedans, and yet it is. When you get behind the wheel, of course, you do feel the shoulder room. You have plenty of it. You certainly feel the width of the car at that point. But when you're behind the wheel, when you're fully engaged in the driving experience and on winding back roads, this car handles like an S4. I think it's very comparable when it comes to the handling, and that is a big surprise because this car is wider, it's longer. It shouldn't be doing that, and yet it does. Then when it comes to the performance, I think the 10-speed automatic pairs up very well with this car. Some people will disagree. Some people want to have the dual clutches found in the NSX, and some people even want to have a ZF 8-speed or 9-speed in this car. And to be honest, I think the 10-speed does quite well. And it shifts smoothly, and it's responsive, more importantly. Now, even though this is turbocharged, I didn't know as much of a turbo lag. And that, to me, is a bit of a surprise, because when you look at the performance that you have here to work with, that's just not something you normally expect with a car like this. But then when you compare it to non-German vehicles, like the Genesis G70, Kia Stinger GT, even the Infiniti Q50S Red Sport, I think the TLX does the job a lot better, especially when it compared to the Infiniti Q50. But when it comes to performance, I think it feels more planted to the road. The suspension is stiffer compared to the G70, even when the G70 is in sport mode. And the G70, to me, leans more towards being a luxury car than anything else, especially with the Napa leather materials. Whereas this, you have ultra suede inserts on the leather seats. And to me, I think Acura is moving in that direction. To me, I think over the last 5 years, Acura has made it very clear that, yeah, they are a luxury brand, but they're a performance brand as well. They're trying to move in that direction. I think they're doing quite well, especially with these new cars. And the TLX Type S is surprised when it comes to the performance and the driving dynamics, and really it was very fun, which I was not really expecting at all. So guys, thank you so much for watching this video. Please like, comment, share, and subscribe for more. Also make sure to follow me on Instagram at Boston Autoblog so you can see what I'm up to and what vehicles I'll be featuring in the future. And I will see you guys next time.